supposed to be. It's called Giga Chad.
As if he was
That's
following
Elon.
the 9 ancestral tenets.
Yeah, if he was like just eating raw liver,
Yeah.
sunning his balls. He said he used popular weight loss drug to get fit, ripped, and healthy. He does look thinner there.
Yeah, there we go. That was the tweet.
Let's see. Oh yeah, looks quite a bit thinner. Well, you know what? There was a photo of him on a yacht where he looked like a wine barrel.
Yeah.
He
yeah.
got big.
That's
But the guy
that's
works fucking 16 hours a day.
sometimes it's unflattering angles though. You're, pushing your stomach
His
out,
answers in
whatever.
3 tweets.
A little fasting and Wegovy.
Yeah. So Wegovy is like there are different increments of dosage from the company that makes it, and the lower dosage, like the drug is semaglutide, and I think the lower one is called Ozempic, and it's for diabetes management, but it's basically just like a pen that's like in 1 milligram increments, and that's the diabetes management dose. There's other smaller increments too, but 2.4 milligrams is like the max well-tolerated dose, where for obesity management it's like significantly more effective.
I would think that for a fighter, if that really does have all those gastrointestinal issues and
Yeah, the net ROI might be negative for some of
yeah,
them.
I would think so.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. What other thing?
It's a limited supply for that drug right now.
Of course, we've talked about it 15 times. You can't get it. All these fat people are so mad. Yeah. Well, lose weight. It's like the value of willpower is very underappreciated, but I get it, and especially when someone is they're used.
Actually talk about a woman cheating on her husband and do so in the highest form. And the same thing with Gulag Archipelago, talking about some of the darkest aspects of human history right when all of that stuff is forbidden, when it's banned. Because now it's like, not, yes, we all know this history, but when in the middle of it, when you're risking your own life, when you're risking your book being banned or burned, or you being in prison, that's when it matters, like taking that risk.
Yeah, and no one took that risk more than Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce was arrested many, many times, and ultimately it wound up costing him his life. I mean, he died on the bathroom floor shooting heroin and trying to cope with all the lawsuits that he was going through. I mean, this guy was constantly being arrested and constantly going through lawsuits, and then his comedy deteriorated horribly. There's some footage of him towards the end of his career where he's essentially would go on stage with legal papers and read from the legal papers about his case. From then, it's Richard Pryor. From him, then the next great is Richard Pryor, and he had the most profound impact on me when I was a kid. When I was 15 years old, my parents took me to see Live at the Sunset Strip, which is Richard Pryor's concert film. And I remember very distinctly being in that audience and laughing and looking around at all the people in the audience who were like falling out of their chairs, just dying laughing, just swaying back and forth. And I was laughing hard too. And I was like, my God, this guy's doing this just by talking. And I thought of all the great movies that I'd seen that I loved that were hilarious comedy movies. And I was like, nothing that I've ever seen is as funny as this. And all he's doing is talking. And that planted a seed in my head for my love of stand-up comedy and my curiosity about the art form. And that's what got me interested in, watching it on television, and then ultimately going to open mic nights, and then eventually doing it.
I've actually been going to open mics a lot recently, just
Oh.
listening.
For psychological examinations of people.
No, it's actually really inspiring to me to see people that, some are funny, some are not so funny, unapologetically trying,
Yeah.
putting it all out there night after night, like eating shit.
Yeah.
My favorite is when, you're talking about like 5 people in the audience and the jokes are just not landing. And they still, I don't know, it feels like even just empathetically, there's few things as difficult as that.
It's hard. I still
It's
remember those
inspiring.
days. Many comics will say this, and I think Dane Cook was the first person I heard say it publicly, that if he ever had to go back and do it again, like from scratch, doesn't think he could do it. Doesn't think he could endure the struggle of open mic to, ultimately to success. And the numbers of people that try it and fail versus try it and succeed are off the charts. I don't know if there's any other art form that has such a low rate of success.
Because it's psychological, it's torture.
It is torture, and it's also not something you can learn. Like, here's the thing: like, if you you play guitar,
Mhm.
you can learn to play guitar. Someone can teach you the chords, and if you do it, you could do all along the Watchtower. You could play it. You can't teach someone how to do comedy.
You think it's you're funny or not, or can you still figure it out? Like,
Yeah.
can you still learn?
You can figure it out. Yeah.
Can you
I don't
be
think-
can you start unfun? Can you start being unfunny
Yes.
and become funny?
Yes, it's possible. It's not easy though.
You're gonna have to eat a lot of shit.
You're going to have to eat a lot of shit, and you're going to have to examine why you're not funny. And you're going to have to spend a lot of time with uncomfortable thoughts and try to figure out what it is. Like, what's missing? Like, and could you edit your stuff and make it better? Maybe you need to do drugs. Maybe you need to get involved in psychedelic drugs and rethink the way you interface with reality itself. Maybe you need your heart broken. Maybe you need to be in love. Maybe there's a lot of maybes there. Like, maybe you just need more life experience. But, when I started comedy, I was 21 and I was a moron. I had no information. I could do impressions of people and I could talk about sex.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I was interested in back then. I mean, if I was talking philosophically, I didn't have a philosophy. I didn't have a unique perspective on life. I hadn't experienced much.
So every time you bomb, it forces you to introspect, to ask questions of yourself, and then that's how you actually develop a philosophy
Yeah.
of what you actually believe.
You
who actually
learn
are.
through doing. And I think you could say that about podcasting too.
Yeah.
I'm certainly way better at having conversations than I ever was when I first started doing comedy, or excuse me, when I first started doing podcasts.
You should
learn
stick with it, kid, because one day you'll be able to interview Donald Trump. You'll be mad enough to handle that conversation. How hard is it to do? Because I've been really curious. It's been on my bucket list because I'm terrified. I want to do everything I'm terrified of.
You gotta do stand up?
No, but I do want to do like 5-minute like open mic.
Why don't you do Kill Tony?
How hard is it to do 5 minutes, would you say?
It's hard. Well, it depends on, how long you've been thinking about doing comedy. It depends on how you look at things. And also depends on your style of comedy. Like, the most difficult style of comedy is I think like Stephen Wright's style is probably the most difficult style of comedy. Complete non sequiturs. One subject doesn't lead into the next. There's no flow to it. It's just, I noticed this, I noticed that, and then there's this, and then there's that. And that's hard to memorize, and it's really hard to piece together an hour of non sequiturs.
But it's easier because you can rely on the joke. It sits more with the joke. Like, whether you're funny or not is on the actual material versus like the timing and the energy, the dance with the audience, right? Because like if you don't have the raw jokes like Stephen Wright does or Mitch Hedberg, then you have to. It's all about the delivery.
Yeah, and that they either kill or they bomb.
Is it random? Like
whether they kill or bomb?
Yeah.
Well,
in the beginning, I mean,
you're essentially a different person every day of your life. You're similar, but you're more tired, you're more rested, you're exhausted, you're refreshed, you have vitamins and food, nourishment in your system. You just get your heart broken, you haven't slept in days. You're a different person all the time. And you go onto that stage. You're in the neighborhood of who Lex Friedman is. You're in the Lex Friedman
Yeah.
neighborhood. Which Lex Friedman am I going to get?
Yeah.
You know,
Energy levels.
yeah.
It depends. It all depends. But the other thing with Kill Tony is it's videotaped. It's so you eating shit
It's on there forever. The
forever.
world can see it. But
For-
it's one of the most important shows in comedy. It's the
Oh, yeah,
most
it's
important
amazing.
show in comedy because, first of all, it establishes stand up in a sense that, like, for the open micers, for the people that are starting it out, it establishes that the most important thing is to be funny. Like, this is what the art form is all about. And there's a lot of insecurity attached to that, a lot of fears. And so to alleviate some of those insecurities and fears, people will decide that the message is more important. And they'll pretend that, you know, like you have to have like you have to be socially aware, that you have to promote things that are positive in your comedy, which is bullshit. The people that say that, they're all bad. They're all bad at comedy. And that's where the insecurity is. It's like they can't just kill. So they have to pretend that they're supposed to be socially aware, and that being socially aware is an important part into society. Like, let me explain something really clearly. There's not a fucking person on earth who's ever changed their life because of a joke. That's not what they're there for. They're there for jokes. The people that say that, they say that socially important comedy is the only comedy that's necessary, the only comedy that you have to do. That is just because they suck.
Yeah.
That is it. It's like the cop-out is that they can't do the real comedy. They can't crush. It's not like someone goes from being, you know, like Shane Gillis, one of the best comics up and coming right now. He's fucking fantastic. I can't recommend enough seeing that guy live. I work with him in Irvine, and I hadn't seen like his whole set. I was crying. I mean, he's so good.
I heard he's
So
a
good.
racist. So I haven't listened to any of his material. No.
He's so good. And his comedy is just trying to be as funny as possible.
Yeah.
There's not a chance in hell that guy's just going to go woke and is just going to start promoting some sort of, you know, socially conscious agenda that's, you know, facetious and just a bunch of nonsense that he's trying to elevate his own personal brand and virtue signal. That's not going to happen. The thing about Kill Tony is, in that, because you only have 1 minute, and because it's live, and because you don't want Tony shitting on you or everybody else shitting on, everybody's just gearing up to try to be as funny as possible. And no one cares if you are gay or straight or Asian or black or trans or non-binary. Nobody gives a fuck. Are you funny? If you're funny, you're in, and everybody loves you. You could be 80, you could be 20. Nobody gives a shit. You could be a woman or a man or ambiguous. Nobody fucking cares. Are you funny? And that's the most important thing for a community of comedy, to really promote comedy. Just funny. Just be funny. And so in that sense, Kill Tony is a real cornerstone of comedy.
It's a reminder what comedy's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
That said, even the funniest stuff has underneath it some wisdom that
Sure.
comes out of it. But that's not the primary goal of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
it
Tim
might
Dillon
be
is-
inspiring and fun. Oh, Tim Dillon's a great example of that. Yeah.
I mean,
He's got some amazing insights in his comedy, but it's still,
it's all about
it's fucking comedy.
it's all about the funny.
Yeah, it's all of the funny. He's the best at doing that, especially in a podcast form, about weaving like really important points in with hilarious, you know, obviously just, you know, just jokes.
Let me ask you, speaking of Tim Dillon, a chaotic, fucked up individual. Can we go to your childhood real quick? A brief stroll. So your mom and dad split up when you were 5. From a Jungian perspective, if you look at your subconscious, what impact do you think that had on you in forming who you are as a man, as a human being?
Well, at the time, I thought that my father was like a hero. You know, he was my dad. I think every kid thinks like that about his dad. His dad is like, your dad's your protector. Your dad is like the coolest guy in the world.
So you
That's
wanna
what
be
you
like
like.
him.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody wants to be like their dad, especially if your dad is like an imposing figure. I remember one time me and my cousin got in a fight over nothing. It was like over who's tougher, King Kong or Godzilla.
Yeah. Over nothing. That's an important, but yeah. I got
And
you.
he said
Actual
Godzilla.
fight, actual
Oh,
physical
I
fight.
punched him in the face. And
This is when you were like 5.
yeah.
Huh.
And so
Which side were you on?
King Kong.
Okay.
I was wrong. Godzilla's like way bigger.
Yeah.
Godzilla's 500 feet tall and he shoots fire out of his mouth.
Yeah. Are you sure? I mean, there's an argument to be made. It's not all about size, right?
No, there's no argument to be made. 500 feet tall versus 50 feet tall. One's a gigantic dinosaur. One is a stupid monkey who gets shot down by a plane.
You don't think
You
a
can't
monkey
kill
can ride
Godzilla.
Godzilla, like take
No.
his back?
No, you can't kill Godzilla with a plane. Like that shit wouldn't work in Godzilla.
Yeah.
Killed King Kong.
Right.
King Kong in the new movies kept growing.
He's getting bigger and bigger. Yeah.
got
yeah.
to the point where he's as big as Godzilla.
It just feels like King Kong is stronger.
Oh, stop.
Back take, immediate back take. You don't think there's a back take? There's a difference
If he's the
between
same size,
human weapons and two animals going at it of a different size. You don't think there's in the jungle a smaller animal can take on a bigger animal, like a monkey versus let's see, a lion, monkey versus a bear.
What?
Who wins?
A monkey versus
not a monkey.
bear?
Not a monkey. What's the strongest ape?
A gorilla?
No, but gorilla. See, okay, gorilla can't do back takes. I'm thinking of like a smaller. You know what I'm saying? Because in jiu-jitsu, you see this all the time.
Do you remember that scene in Talladega Nights? Do you know Talladega
Yeah,
Nights?
yeah.
Where the little boy's talking to his grandpa? I'll be all over you like a spider monkey.
Exactly, spider monkey. I was thinking. All right.
There's
fair enough.
some animals. Like here's a better example: a wolverine. Wolverines chase wolves and bears off of their kills, and they're not very big at all. They're just so ferocious, and they're so durable. Like it's very hard to kill a wolverine.
Yeah, and there's videos of like cats, like not actual like domestic cats, or domestic dogs starting shit with much larger animals,
Yeah.
and if they're ferocious enough.
Well,
It
pit
works.
bulls are a great example of that. Pit bulls are small. Like real game bred pit bulls are like 35, 45 pounds, and they'll kill much larger dogs.
Anyway, you were on King Kong's side.
Yeah,
beating
so-
the shit out of your cousin.
I remember he said to me, like I thought I was in like real trouble because I remember my cousin's mom was yelling at me and it was like, "You monster!" all this crazy shit. So, my dad got me alone and he said, "Tell me what happened." And I told him, we got in a fight, we were arguing over King Kong and Godzilla, and I punched him in the face. And he goes, "Did you cry?" I go, "No." He goes, "Good. Don't ever cry." And I remember that, like, whoa, okay. And I remember thinking, all right, I'm just going to start punching people. Because, like, obviously my dad thinks it's a good idea if I go running around punching people as long as I don't cry. Like, I remember certain things about, and also, like, this is, again, like we were talking about watching Lenny Bruce and getting a timeline of what the world was like back then. This was a different world.
Yeah.
In 1970, this would have been 1972. It's a different world back then, man. Like a really different world.
Is some of that so? Carl Jung talked about the shadow. It's the unconscious, where you have dark stuff, and oftentimes you use it to project. There's stuff that you're very self-critical about yourself, but because it's in your unconscious, you use it to project onto others. You see it as flaws in others, and that's a good way to, like, whatever. I think he has a quote, like, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So that's
yeah.
that's a nice way to investigate yourself, like something that pisses you off. You start asking questions of your own mind, and that's how you bring it to the surface. But anyway, from that, those are formative years. From that time, is there still stuff in your unconscious you think you haven't examined? Some dark shit?
I don't think so. I'm not aware if it is, because I've looked. Like if someone someone says, I left something over your house. Like, where'd you leave it? I don't know. Like, all right, I'll go look.
Yeah.
I'll get get a real thorough look.
But I'm pretty sure.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've looked. I mean, it certainly had an effect. I think the positive effect also was compounded by the fact that when my mother married my stepdad, who's a great guy, who was a hippie, very different.